Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Muslim Sex Podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in. I really appreciate your patronage, and I would love it if you could leave me a 5-star review because that really helps me. And if you could like and share this episode with somebody that you know that may benefit, your friend, your colleague, anyone, I'd really love you to share this podcast, especially if you find value in the Muslim Sex Podcast. Also, I'd love for you to subscribe to my YouTube channel and follow me on all my social media. Also, as you probably know, if you've been listening to this podcast, is that I have a practice that is now open in Chappaqua, New York. I see patients for menopause and sexual health, as well as regular gynecology. So if you are looking for a gynecologist that actually spends time with you, that has time to listen to you, then I would invite you to come and see me in my practice, and I'd be more than happy to take care of you. So make sure if you live in the New York area, or even if you don't, come and see me in my office. I'd love to meet you. And also, last but not least, is that I am hosting again my retreat in Morocco for 2025. So if you are looking for a gift for a family member, a friend, yourself, make sure you take a look at our retreat, the Love and Nourish retreat. It will be held September 19th through the 26th, 2025. Again, this year in Morocco, we will be visiting the same towns. We will be in Marrakesh and Essaouira. And as always, we will be providing information and lectures on menopause, perimenopause, nutrition, and also going for cooking classes as well as excursions. So don't miss out. I know a lot of people were sad when they missed out this past year on the Morocco retreat. So make sure that you go and visit the Love and Nourish retreat hosted by Caria Retreats. And now onto the episode. I am an American board certified OBGYN, a mom, a Muslim, and I'm talking about sex. This is the Muslim Sex Podcast. All right. Hi, everyone, and welcome. We are hosting our nutrition webinar today on Midlife, and I am super excited to introduce to you our guest, who is Toby Amidor. Toby is a Wall Street Journal best-selling cookbook author and has published 11 cookbooks. Can you believe that? 11. That's a lot. For over 17 years, Toby has been the nutrition expert for the foodnetwork.com and founding contributor to their Healthy Eats blog. Toby is a regular contributor for many national online publications, and for over 10 years has been penning the Ask the Expert column in Today's Dietitian magazine. She is also on the medical board for Forbes.com and EatThis.com and on the editorial board for Today's Dietitian magazine. As a nutrition expert, she has been quoted in hundreds of publications and regularly appears on local and national television shows. For 11 years, Toby was an adjunct professor at Teachers College, Columbia University. Woohoo, that's amazing. Toby trained as a clinical dietitian at New York University. Through ongoing consulting and faculty positions, she has established herself as one of the top experts in culinary nutrition, food safety, and media communications. In 2018, Toby was awarded by the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics the coveted Media Excellence Award. That's amazing. Thank you so much, Toby, for being here and for coming on and talking to us all about nutrition in midlife. So thanks so much.
Of course.
All right. So, I know that we were thinking about a presentation, but let's just do kind of like a question and answer session. And let's focus on that. I think that might be interesting to a lot of people. So, when it comes to the biggest challenge of eating healthy in midlife, what do you think that is, Toby?
Something, people think it's inevitable that you're going to gain weight, which is one of the things. But yes, you have perimenopause coming, and that certainly plays a role. But I think people forget your kids are off to college. You're not running around as much anymore. You may be sitting and a little less sedentary, or like, oh, the kids aren't here. I could sit on the sofa now and eat some like food, the never ending, chips or whatever it is. So you don't realize too that your behaviors are shifting as your kids are moving out or as life goes on to different stages. So it's not just the blame to put on sometimes perimenopause, but also taking a step back and looking at stuff. I think another thing over 40 is, and I get this from even today, I had someone call me about it, in terms of, you're so, a lot of the supplement companies are focusing on, take all these supplements and I need to take a supplement to lose weight to get, feel better. And I think also that is, you have to be very careful with that. So it's a misconception that you need all these supplements all the time, because actually sometimes it could do more harm than good. Um, so those are two of them that I can think of right now.
Yeah, I think that what you said is really, really true. And that is that, we become a little bit more sedentary as we get older, right? So a lot of people start to develop these chronic conditions. Maybe they have joint pain, maybe they are not sleeping, for example, like you mentioned in perimenopause, right? A lot of women are having the hot flashes and night sweats and all of those things that are starting to happen. And when you're not sleeping at night, you're going to be exhausted during the day, and you're definitely going to lose that motivation to go and work out and exercise or do anything extra, right? And some women are not even able to make it through the workday. So let alone do something, above and beyond, whether it's working out or, going for a walk or something like that. So I think you make a very good point is that, our lifestyle changes and we're not running around, but also we're becoming exhausted because of the hormonal changes.
Right. So those are two things that certainly like come into play. And some people have worse symptoms, as we know, I did have a lot worse symptoms, and some people have much more mild symptoms. But that's why I always like, as of, since I've been seeing you too, I highly recommend always talking and seeing and getting your lab work done by, a gynecologist who knows what they're doing. That's always what I say, because I've gone to some are really just, that's not their specialty. And you do want someone who's really, into the latest research and really understands what's going on in this field, because it's, it's always new research is always coming out.
Yeah, yeah, you're absolutely right. And I agree with you. There's not too many Menopause Society certified practitioners in Westchester County. So if you're feeling like, you're not getting the answers that you want, or, you're talking to your gynecologist and they just don't know, or maybe your internist or whoever, right? They honestly may not know because that wasn't in their training, and they don't really have an interest in learning about those things because they're so busy still doing deliveries or, dealing with abnormal uterine bleeding or dealing with all of these other pathologies that can happen in midlife or younger or recurrent, vaginal infections, all of this stuff, right? And so they just don't have time. I mean, there's so much information that we have to know. And so it's hard to know everything and be good at everything. So that's why it's important to go see somebody that's maybe a little bit more niched, right?
Right. And I do want to also add, like, I went to my internist and I was explaining to him just when I started talking perimenopause, he like brushed it off.
Yeah.
And, don't ever feel discouraged if someone does that to you, because it does happen. It's not the first person who's done that to me. And that's why it's really important if you feel those symptoms, like you said, because I couldn't even walk my dogs. The joint pain was so, severe for me. And now I walk them happily with, however you helped me. So, but, between that and then the food choices, sometimes you don't have as much symptoms, but maybe your lifestyle changed a little bit if your kids went off or you're, maybe started to go into retirement. So I think there's certainly two things to look at, your behavior in general and then the perimenopause like changes that are happening.
100%. So do you feel that you yourself, your metabolism has slowed down over the years? What do you
Oh
think?
my goodness, of course it has. I can't lose it. When so, after I had kids, I had three kids, gained close to 40 pounds with each of them, 38 pounds. Oh, please, I was able to get back within a year and a half to my body weight as it was previously. Once I hit, what is it? Once I hit 40, like I did gain weight, but I was able to lose it. Once I hit like 48, and I know like my hormones definitely, I was feeling a lot of perimenopause symptoms. It's much more difficult, but I also think that there's certainly things you can do, but it's also about body imagery and feeling good about yourself. When you do get the treatment, our bodies change as we age too, and we're not supposed to be like the magazines or social media says all the time either. There's a way to be healthy and not be, look like that as well, and you still can look absolutely gorgeous. So, understanding from a psychological perspective too, and body acceptance is really, really important.
I think you're so right. When it comes to body image, I think so many women feel that they just don't like the way they look anymore, right? They don't feel good in their body as especially as they get older. And that weight, it's harder to lose. And when we don't feel good about our bodies, being intimate with somebody, right, that becomes harder as well because you're
Hmm.
almost like you're spectating, right? Like you're watching yourself from above and thinking, wow, I don't like the way I look there, or, there's all this, roles that I didn't have before. And all of a sudden, look at me and I'm not like what I used to look like when I was 20, but you know what? You're not 20. So I think what's
Right.
really important to understand is that, just loving yourself. And, we totally went off on a tangent right
I
now.
know, I know, but it's all part of the picture. But it's
But
all
it
part
is.
of the picture
Right.
because when
Yeah.
you find the help that you need and know, like I know I'm doing everything possible from a dietary perspective to seeing, a qualified GYN for my perimenopause. I have an exercise routine. I try to get the sleep. So I'm doing what's possible. So to me, my body is, I'm happy with it because I know I'm working hard to achieve and I feel better
Yeah.
too.
Yeah, 100%, Toby. And I think what everything you're saying is like spot on because it's so important, right? Everything is connected. Our nutrition is connected to our body image, and it's so intertwined, right? Because if we don't feel good about our bodies, we're going to start to restrict foods and maybe foods that even are healthy for us, but instead we're going to be like, oh, I can't eat this or I shouldn't be eating this because, I'm so fat or I just feel fat, right? And we hear that a lot from women, especially in midlife. You hear tons of women say all the
Oh,
time,
yeah.
oh, I've gained so much weight. I'm so fat. I shouldn't be eating this. I shouldn't be. And they feel guilty all the time around food.
Right. And that's not, food is there to be enjoyed as well. Yes, there's a whole food as medicine movement, but you still need to enjoy. And there's so
Yeah.
many good recipes that
Yeah.
you can try from all kinds of cultures and all kinds of, foods
From your
that
11
are
cookbooks.
delicious. Yeah, there are in my 11 cookbook. I have good recipes in there.
I'm sure. I'm sure. So let's start talking about some of the myths, So tell me, what are some of the biggest nutrition myths you see that specifically target women over 40?
So in terms of over 40, I mean, one of the biggest nutrition myths even now that I'm hearing about, and it always shifts over time, is I can't eat ultra processed food. And
Mm,
it's very difficult. If you understand, like they use originally the ultra processed food was done with something called a Nova system, and all it talked about is how far in the processing point did a food go. So protein powder, and they put it as like level one, Nova two, Nova three, Nova four is ultra processed. So yes, you have cookies, candies, cakes. You do have stuff like that. But you also have protein powder in there. You also have baby formula in there and hummus that is commercial hummus and commercial bread in there. These are things that are okay for you as well. So I think it's a differentiator. I think the terminology, I always tell this to my dietetic friends. I'm like, it's not the ultra processing, it's the quality of the food product. What is the nutrition in there? Cookies, cakes, that's going to make you, first of all, it's calorie dense, high in added sugar, high in saturated fat and calories. That's not what we're looking for here. But if you want some, commercial hummus that you find at the store and you take, quarter cup and you dip it with vegetables, you're getting your vegetables with it and you're getting healthy fat and you're getting chickpeas and plant-based. So, that's what you're more looking at as opposed to the word ultra processed. So always take a step back and think about, is this, more of a social pressure out there or terminology that's being thrown around by the press versus the reality of what a food is.
Yeah, I'm so glad you bring that up, and I'm glad you broke that down for us, because when I think of ultra processed, I'm thinking the same thing. I'm thinking like, cookies and cakes and stuff like that. And I never would have thought about, the hummus that you can get at a store or like a bread or something like, like
Peanut
I'm never
butter.
thinking, yeah,
Peanut
oh,
butter.
yeah,
Yeah, like a commercial peanut butter. And like you go to Trader Joe's and it's just like peanuts and salt. You're good. I promise you,
yeah,
that's fine. Like
yeah, yeah,
that,
yeah.
like it has to do with like sometimes they have some stabilizers in it. Those are okay. We don't live like that. We can go to the supermarket every day. And so there are things added to the food. You have to be the ultimate decider of it that are added in order to ensure that the microorganisms don't get you sick and keep those down and make sure the shelf life is elongated as well. So you can keep it and not have to go to the supermarket 5 times a week.
Right.
So, there has to be some sort of line being drawn to understand like the food you're taking into your house versus, yeah, I really don't want, a lot of cookies, cakes, and candy sitting around my house.
Yeah, I mean, you may still be going to the store 5 times a week if you have kids, but
Yeah.
not yet.
I always did meal prepping. I have a couple books on that because
Yeah,
I like to like,
I might borrow those. I might borrow those from you. So how should we approach our nutrition change as we enter perimenopause and menopause?
I think it's important to realize like you said, I think one important thing is people start cutting things out, and that's not smart. You end up cutting out, and I'll start with the simple ones. Many people know calcium and vitamin D. So dairy foods to me are very important, especially with calcium and vitamin D, because those are with healthy bones, and that's osteoporosis, things that we know happen in later in life. And we do want to catch it as early as possible. That's why like good habits at an early age are really important. But
Yeah,
then you also like people like, I can't eat commercial bread. Yeah, you know something? Or white flour. All that is actually enriched and fortified with B vitamins. And we've gotten rid of a lot of deficiencies like thiamine, niacin, riboflavin. We don't have those anymore because I'm not saying you have to eat all your bread being white, but like you have to remember if you do have something, it should be enriched or fortified. And that's important to ensure that we continue without some of the deficiencies we got rid of in the early 1900s. Even
yeah.
iodine. People are like, "Oh, let me do the pink Himalayan salt." Great if you want to try it once in a while, but you have iodine. And iodine deficiency has started to come back. Iodine was added in salt in 1924 to prevent goiter, which can mess with your metabolism, and so you do want to have some regular iodine salt in your kitchen. That's okay. And kosher salt can be iodized. You just have to look for it. So these things aren't added to food for no reason. There's a reason why they were originally put. Doesn't mean you only need to have it, but just be mindful of what you do cut out because you're going to be cutting out sometimes things that are there for a purpose and are important for your diet.
Such important information, Toby, things that I wouldn't even have thought about. And yeah, I mean, I think that pink Himalayan salt is awesome, but I didn't realize, I guess you're not thinking about it all the time, right? Like we're thinking about so many
Yeah.
other things. You're not thinking about, oh, the iodine in the salt is important because of, to prevent goiter and things like that. So it's so important that you bring these things up. So what role do you think that protein plays in preserving muscle mass during midlife, and how much do
Well,
we really need?
yeah, so with protein, I think that's something that is an important nutrient. I know me, if I could eat carbs all day, and it's not that carbs are quote unquote bad, but I need to have protein to balance out my life too. And the way protein, we're not in the 80s anymore, so you're not going to see like a 10-ounce ribeye on your plate and two vegetables. That's not how we fill our plates. So protein certainly helps keep with muscle mass. It definitely helps with a lot of metabolic reactions in the body. As you know, when you go on hormone replacement therapy, you also need to make sure to ensure muscle mass is kept there, bone strength is kept there. Protein plays a huge role, but people don't eat it the right way. And you can't sit there and have like 50 grams of protein in one time. You're not going to absorb it past about 30, 35 grams of protein. Your body will just excrete it. So the max you really want is about 30 grams of protein, but you want it at breakfast, you want it at lunch, you want it at dinner. So you want to distribute it throughout the day. And then snacks, if you can, about 10 to 15 grams of protein, you can get that as well. And there's so many different ways that you can do it. Let me tell you, everything has protein in it nowadays. So, but you want to have like, there's chocolate with protein. Like that is not where you want to get your protein from. I get samples of everything because I'm in the press. So there's tomato sauce with protein. Like
Wow.
have piece of fish. Go have some sushi. Go have some, you know?
Right, some real stuff, right?
Yeah.
That's so funny. I guess I never even knew that chocolate could have protein. Who knew, right?
It's all new on the market. Like I go to all these conferences with the latest things. Pretzels, there's protein pretzels. There's
Wow.
everything with protein. Even drinks has whey protein, like
Oh
seltzers.
my goodness. Wow.
Yeah.
All right. So can certain foods actually help with hot flashes, mood swings, or brain fog? What do you think?
There is some evidence with that. And to tell you honestly, like I had a good diet. I had more brain fog was one of my worst things that I had. Honestly, you can have a good diet, but if it goes to the facts, at least from a personal perspective, I needed the hormones that were okay and not contraindicated for me in order to really clear that up. And
Yeah.
then from there, I was able to then eat properly. So there are some nutrients. I don't think it's gonna like it'll help, but I don't think it's going to do the job because it's certainly like it's not going to do the same job as the hormones are going to do for you.
Yeah. I mean, when I think of that, when people ask me and they say, I don't want to do, um, like I don't want to do hormones, can you just tell me of something I can eat that'll give me the same benefit? And honestly, I can't think of anything, that'll give you the same benefit as an estradiol patch would or something, as estrogen would, right? Because I can't think of a food that's going to prevent my osteoporosis. Sure, I can have some calcium dairy that's going to provide some calcium, but is it going to prevent the osteoporosis that's going to happen, right? As our estrogen totally like does a, deep dive after menopause, right? It's probably not going to happen. Um,
Right, I agree with you completely. And they both play a role. So
right.
if you can get that estrogen back up and then also complement it, it can certainly help overall with with your health. And I agree with you. And I strongly agree with you. I'll tell you, it really changed my life being on the estrogen therapy. But like I've spoken to friends about it too. It's also you have to go to a physician and make sure you're okay to take it because I know there are a little bit of contraindications sometimes too.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why it's really important, right? So we discussed the risks and the benefits, your medical history, all the things going on in your life and perhaps your family history and things like that. But I will say honestly, like I would say for the most part, I don't want to say, it's not women are not a monolith or everybody's not the same, but I would say for the most part, most women can have hormones. And we have safe hormones. We have, transdermal, which is the patch, anything that doesn't go through the liver is considered transdermal. So that could be a gel, it could be a spray, it could be the patch, it could be a ring. Any one of those forms that doesn't go through the liver is considered transdermal, and you can try it and see if it works for you. So, there's different ways to get that estrogen if you need it and if you find that it would be helpful. I think that, the hot flashes and mood swings, again, they happen as a result of the thermoregulatory center in the brain that kind of is off, right? Because you don't have that estrogen, and those estrogen levels are fluctuating in perimenopause, and then in menopause they go down completely. And so that's why you get those, the hot flashes, the night sweats, and all of those things. And I don't think a food is going to be able to take care of that. I think that you are really going to need to get that hormonal support. And, for those people that can't take hormones, we do have another medication that you're able to take that's non-hormonal that also helps with hot flashes and night sweats. So, this obviously this webinar is more about and I think, this webinar actually, Toby, may end up being a podcast.
But
But
I'll tell you one other thing. One of just so temperature dysregulation, I had a little, but in terms of I had severe appetite dysregulation. I'm a dietitian. I know how to like lose weight. I've done it before, when I started gaining weight in my 40s, due to some, your body slows down a little. I'm like, whoo, I went out my diet. So I was able to lose totally, lost it. But I ended up, as I was getting more towards my 50s, with appetite dysregulation. So,
mm,
and it was so strong that if I even cut back some of my calories, didn't matter. I wasn't losing weight. And so, I couldn't even select, like I was so driven, like I need to eat, I need to eat. So that dysregulation, even in the appetite, once that's regulated, you could start going back to food and have much more control over what you're eating, leading to weight loss after that as well. So once you get your body kind of the metabolism back on track, that's when you can start like your joint pain is gone. And then guess what? You can exercise more and have a healthy, and that helps with anxiety that you might be experiencing. So
Yeah.
these little things that, the appetite dysregulation, even the fog or not being able to sleep, when you're tired, research shows that you tend to go for foods that are comfort foods, high in calories, high in like think of mac and cheese or these comfort, fried foods. And so when you're not tired anymore, so you're almost compounding the issue when you have these perimenopause symptoms.
Yeah.
And so that's why that control is really important to get. And that's why I think that the diet and that, medical therapy for perimenopause, whatever it may be for you, might just be one thing, it might be a combination, whatever the physician recommends, that is the most important thing.
Yeah, yeah. And I think that you are, of course, right about all of that because we know that it's not, first of all, it's not one size fits all. And it's also not that, one therapy is going to work for everyone, right? But I think that what you stated about the appetite, right, being dysregulated due to the decline in estrogen, we know that that happens. We know there's a hormone that's responsible for satiety, and that is affected in perimenopause. And so once you get that regulated, that will also help you. But also making good food choices, right? I mean, Toby,
Yeah.
you talk a lot about increasing the protein, and I think that we know protein, and we haven't even gotten to fiber yet, right? So
Yeah, oh yeah, that's a big one. But yeah, so in terms of let's go back a little to protein. So like I said, you want to distribute the protein about 30 grams morning, afternoon, and evening, and then about 10 to 15 grams. It doesn't have to be exact. If you get close, great. But the point is distribute it. Your body only uses about 30 grams max. After that, it doesn't matter. You can eat 100 grams. Doesn't matter. The body won't use it. And that's per, a lot of research. Basically, we know this already. So that distribution, you also want to go for lean cuts. So if you do like your meat or you do like, there's leaner cuts that actually is high in monounsaturated fat, believe it or not, from beef or pork or whatnot. So there certainly are leaner cuts that you can make taste great. Fish, omega-3s are super important anti-inflammatory. We know this. Also some heart health benefits to them as well. So, fish and seafood, those are all good choices. And then, of course, you have your plant-based protein sources, whether it's tofu, and there is links with soy and the positive effects on perimenopause as well. And so you have soy or beans or lentils or, so there's a ton of different options out there for protein.
it's awesome. So, I know that there are for some women that drink alcohol. Do you think that alcohol affects women differently in midlife, and should they be cutting back?
I have, I'm sure you've seen on social, oh, I need my glass of wine. Oh, it's not great. The recommendations are no more than one serving of alcohol per day if you choose to drink for women. So one serving of alcohol is a 5 ounce, 5 fluid ounce, like a nice glass of wine, not to the tippy top, but filled with 5 ounce, 5 fluid ounces. It's also like if you'd like a shot, let's say 1.5 ounces of an 80 proof liquor, like a rum, a vodka, something of that sort, or 12 ounce of like a Budweiser. It's a 5% alcohol by volume. So if you're drinking more, I don't know about you, but if I drink a little too much, and that's not that much, 2 drinks, I don't feel good. I can't do everything. I can't get up normally. I don't tolerate it well. Not only that, you're not providing your body with calories that it could do something, nutrition in there. There's not much in there.
Yeah.
And you don't want to, fill up with alcohol versus something else. So if you choose to drink, one nice glass of wine with dinner, if you choose, if you're starting to binge drink, it's not, that's not something that's productive for your health, if you will.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, so actually I don't drink at all and
Hmm.
so never have, but I think for those people that do drink, I think this is important information. And also to
Hmm.
your point, I think that we know that hot flashes can be made worse by alcohol and that we know that the Surgeon General just this past year put out that I believe alcohol was responsible for, can't remember if it was 7 to 10 different types of cancers. So they all of those reasons may be, reasons that somebody decides they don't want to drink. So, but in midlife, I know that there can be a lot of anxiety, a lot of stress. People are trying to.
Oh, that'll play with that. Yeah, that's not a smart thing to do. It won't, first of all, you'll be more tired. Your anxiety will certainly get up. If you're tired again, your food choices go down the drain, right? High in saturated fat. You're not going to exercise. You're not going to sleep well because it interferes with your sleep. So all the things you're trying to fix to make you feel better and, be healthier are out the window when you drink. And this is like on a consistent basis.
Yeah.
Some people have more than a glass a day, a lot more than that on a regular basis, and that's not healthy for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. So, what do you think about intermittent fasting? Is it safe or beneficial for women in their 40s and 50s? I've seen quite a bit about intermittent fasting being really good for individuals and especially for women in midlife. What do you think?
In terms of, there's a couple types of intermittent fasting. So, and it's rather popular, but again, what is the most common one is the one where you eat for 8 hours and then the rest you just have some fluids. Um, For me, there's a couple reasons I'm not a huge fan, but there also might be some reasons why someone chooses to do it, but there's different ways you can look at it. First of all, your 8 hour window, certain nutrients interact with one another, like calcium and iron don't work well. And so there's a reason why we spread out our meals. And so you get like feeds of different nutrients throughout the day to get what you need. The diet itself doesn't tell you, oh, you should be eating X, Y, and Z. It just says kind of eat whatever you want. Though some places will be like eat more fiber to make you feel full. But then again, are you getting everything you need in those 8 hours? That's the question. If you're a person where you're eating at night and that's why you're doing it, then it might be good to say, okay, this is a cutoff time and make yourself a better schedule for yourself. Because also if you go more than 5 hours without eating, let's say you're really busy at work, I'm sure you get this, and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm so starving, I'll just go anywhere to get anything to eat. That's not good either. So sometimes just scheduling yourself, kind of like intermittent fasting, but maybe a longer window without the snacking, that might be a better idea for someone as opposed to just okay, I'm just shoving everything in 8 hours. Whatever I eat, and then I'm not eating. Because I've seen a lot of people doing it that way, and that's not a beneficial way.
Yeah. I like how talk about like really being mindful when you do something like that, right? And really planning out your meals. I remember when I was fasting for the month of Ramadan, you actually told me, you said, well, what are you eating pre-fast? And I remember telling you about the protein shake that I was making. You're like, you're not getting enough protein. You need to add more. You need to add Greek yogurt. You need to add some type of
To
protein.
get to that 30 grams.
Yeah. Yeah. And ever since you told me, that's what I've been doing. That's what I do. I always add Greek yogurt now because in my back of my mind, I'm like, Toby said I'm not getting enough
That's so
protein. I need
funny.
to add more protein. But yeah, I think that's really great that you talk about that, right? So intermittent fasting maybe is good for a lot of reasons. It's good as a good cleanse for the body, but it's really important to be mindful about what you're eating beforehand and afterwards, right? And that you're not when you say whenever you're breaking your fast or after those 8 hours, right? Or during those 8 hours, that you're not eating like junk food, but that you're eating actually, nutrient rich foods
Right.
that you're actually helping your body out, right? You're eating nutritious foods that's good for your body.
Right. And also, if you have some healthy fat source, that helps with satiety. Like, for example, I started having once in a while, I'll have a full fat, one of my favorite skier yogurts. It's full fat. I know the women, I had an interview with the women who made it, and it's so filling because the full fat dairy actually keeps you feeling full. And then it has the protein in it as well. So for me, that worked. Oatmeal in the morning with a little bit of nuts, that works too. So, you have to, because of the fiber in that, fiber will help with that as well. You can put some peanut butter from healthy fat. So there's different ways depending on what you like to eat or basic on your culture, however you like to eat. There's so many options out there.
Yeah. So, what are some quick, realistic meal ideas for busy midlife women juggling work, caregiving, and health? What would you say?
One of the things I like to recommend, and some of my friends who have this, they're like, oh, I like your sheet pan. Like sheet pans are like, I love them. There's not a lot of dishes. you're basically like putting, let's say, salmon, or you can do a chicken on like a sheet pan, and then adding the vegetables because they need a little bit less cooking time a little later. The potatoes can go in with the chicken, and you can have a full meal with, like, again, I like it balanced, so you can have carbs like the potatoes or sweet potatoes if you'd like in there. You can have vegetables on there, and then you can have your protein. And if you want to drizzle olive oil, salt, and pepper, or if you want to do a little bit stronger spices on there, great. But you don't have that much to clean up afterwards, and it's done usually in 30 to 45 minutes, but you're not doing much of the work because it's just in the oven. So I kind of like that. A chili, like I do a bean chili a lot of times. I kind of like that 30 minutes. I can make a nice chili. If you want, you could put some ground turkey or ground beef or just make it beans, whatever you want to do. But that's another one I like to do. For the summer, the no cook. Listen, you don't have to even cook a lot of times. Sometimes if you just put some vegetables, and they used to call it, well, it was a very trend, like a girl dinner or something like that. That's
Mhm.
okay too, but you don't want like unhealthy things. So you could put some vegetables there, hard-boiled egg if you wanted to, or chickpeas on the side or something like that. You can make yourself a non-cooked dinner if, like, it's super hot right now in the 100-degree range where you don't want to cook, but that's okay. Just think about what you're putting. Put some fresh fruit. Everything is so delicious now. Put some fresh fruit, some vegetables, protein in there. And then you can do some nice crackers. Like wasa has nice like fiber in it, for example, to get you feeling full. So you don't have to slave over a stove either. You could do both.
I love that. Actually, I'm gonna I'll talk to you offline about those one sheet meals. I think that's a great idea. I am not a huge fan of cooking at all, and so I think ideas like that to me make it more palatable, for a better
That's
word.
why I bring them up because I know.
Yeah.
I know you.
Yeah, yeah, no, that's awesome. That's awesome. So tell me, so how about like, so let's say for South Asian or other culturally diverse diets, how can foods be adapted to support midlife health without losing, like, say, their traditional foods and things like that?
Some of the things you have to be careful of, it depends what the foods are, but you have to look at the lean cuts. You're looking at, so if it's a lot of fish, that's fine. If it's beef or lamb or pork, there are lean cuts of everything. But you're also looking at the sauces. So something
Mhm.
like coconut, you got to be really careful. It's actually considered a saturated fat. So that has been shown to have some issues in terms of cardiovascular disease, which you can have
Mhm.
some, but you're supposed to have less than, the recommendation is less than 10% of your diet should be from
Yeah.
saturated fat, including coconut, and some of the pom-pom kernel and the pom-pom kernel, those tropical oils as well. You don't want to fry. There are other ways you could do it besides fry. So you can pan fry, which is very like a teaspoon or tablespoon of oil as opposed to deep fry. And by the way, deep frying is super messy. So you don't have to do that.
Yeah.
I don't even do it because like the whole wall, if you really deep fry
Yeah.
the right way, are all messy. It's a lot to clean up. But
Yeah.
even when you order out, because right, if you're in a rush, a lot of people order. So like if I'll do a dish, I don't know, I'll get sometimes the sauce on the side, and then and they give you a lot that you can actually keep to make your own dish later on. And I
Mm.
just use a little bit. Even the salad dressings, it's great to have a vinaigrette oil based, but you don't need more than 2 tablespoons for a serving. So they give you a little cup with like sometimes a lot more than two servings in a restaurant, when they send you home. You don't
Yeah.
need all that. That's going to add up to calories you don't need. So making just small choices, can help with all that.
Hmm. So what are your top three pantry staples for midlife nutrition?
I'd like some sort of nut always in there because I feel like, but you have to be careful. I don't want to eat endless nuts,
Yeah.
but I do like them like sprinkled on things to help because they have a ton of benefits, a ton of healthy fat, fiber for sure, vitamin E, which is an antioxidant. So you could throw them on your oatmeal, you can put them on your yogurt, you can even throw them on a salad. Like you could do a lot of different things with them. So I'm always like any sort of nut. I like cashews personally, but there's pistachios. There's so
I
many different
love
ones.
cashews.
Yeah, I put them on my oat. Like that's my breakfast with like blackberries tomorrow. Like it's in my head. I have my first book was on Greek yogurt, so and that has the calcium in it, and the Greek yogurt has less sugar because it's strained a little less, 40% less sodium than traditional yogurt, a little bit higher protein. So I do like the Greek yogurt. If you don't have dairy, you can always go with soy. Be careful with the plant-based beverages because they don't have the same nutrient profile as soy or dairy unless they're fortified in there. And a lot of the milks are, I call them naked. They took away all the fortification because people don't want added ingredients, but we need those added ingredients, whether it's vitamin D or calcium or, and so like an almond beverage or almond milk without any added calcium or D, you're not getting very much. Yes, it's very low, but you're not also getting the nutrition you need. So I think that's an important thing. You have to look at what you're picking up in terms of like that kind of thing. Let me see a third thing. I mean, personally, I would go with like a fish, like salmon or tuna, just because they're so healthy type of protein. And I just think there's so many different ways you can prepare them.
Now that you mentioned salmon and tuna, I'm a little bit curious about tuna. I always heard that it had a lot of mercury, and so you have to worry about it because it's a larger fish, so it's a smaller fish, and it ends up having a lot of mercury in it, which is not good for your brain. So what do you say
I
about?
wrote about that one. I wrote about it for Food Network. I actually spoke to some experts in the field.
Oh,
We
I
don't
love.
even get even close to how much like fish we're supposed to get. We're not getting the mercury that people think we're getting at all. We're not close to it. It's like eat your fish, just get your 8 ounces like a week, 2 servings a week, just get that. And then actually you'll get a nice amount of omega 3s. You're not even getting close to like the only one that really the FDA warns
Uh-huh.
is for pregnant women and women who are going to become pregnant and very young children. That's the only one for high mercury fish like king tile, kingfish. There's a couple others. There's actually a website that lists everything that you can go and actually the government sites have like how much mercury, like high, low, middle. So you would just go to lower mercury fish.
See, I didn't know that, and so I'm so glad you talked about that because I like avoid tuna, even though I love tuna. I will avoid it
No.
because I worry about the mercury content. So,
No, take even canned, not expensive. Throw it on, even have it in oil and use that as your dressing.
okay, yeah.
And just have, and there's some really, really like if you're worried, there are brands like Safe Catch, or there's some brands that actually check the mercury before after. But truly, when I spoke to experts in the field, we don't even get enough. It's like worrying about pesticides in fruits and vegetables. Only 1% of 1 out of 10 people even eat the amount of vegetables they're supposed to. You would need to eat, like for strawberries, you would need 350 servings or so. There's something that a tool that tells you a woman would need like a couple hundred servings of strawberries or blueberries in order to get even a minute amount of pesticide, in their bodies from conventional like strawberries. We don't even eat our few servings of fruit a day. So
Mm,
sometimes the stuff is way over exaggerated. Eat your food, you'll get the benefit from it. Most people don't eat the way there's about 50% of the population. We've reached how much about 50% of how we're supposed to eat, quote unquote, like a
yeah.
healthy diet. Yeah.
Yeah, no, this is all such great information because, we all, at least I worry about, like the pesticide, the mercuries, this, that, and you're right. Like we don't even eat enough of the fruit.
You don't need to stop worrying so much and eat up. Like, make
Right,
good choices and stop
right,
worrying. And I'll
right.
tell you a little secret. Like, I used to do spokesperson work with California strawberries, so I've done a lot of spokesperson work. When the farmers cannot sell their organic strawberries, for example, they put it into the conventional strawberry containers.
Oh
You're
my,
allowed to do that and sell it as conventional. So you actually might be eating organic and the whole California strawberry where we get 90% of our strawberries in the US. They're trying to merge the organic and conventional method to be just all organic. And they used, yes, there's some chemical methods, but most of the methods are sending out a bug to eat the bug that's eating the plants. So or like they have a little vacuum to get rid of the bugs that's eating the plants. They're not dousing your things with chemicals. They're not allowed to. And they eat their own, produce and it's delicious right off the farm. So, me being literally I've been on about 70 or 80 farms and I've spoken to many, many farmers. They do a lot more than people realize, or they are not doing things that people are thinking they're doing.
yeah, this is fantastic. I mean, it's great that who knew? I didn't know. So this is such important information that you're letting us know. So what's your advice for women who feel overwhelmed by all of the different type of diet trends, right? So you've got paleo, you've got keto, you got plant-based. I mean, where does somebody even begin?
You know something, your best bet, if you're really confused, look for something with a registered dietitian, RD or RDN, registered dietitian nutritionist. It's the same thing. We're the same thing. It used to be RD, and now they added the nutritionist to show that nutritionists are dietitians. So I'm credentialed. I can accept Medicare if I applied for to do it. I can see people in hospital. So, I work with physicians. So it doesn't have to be me, but if you pick up even a book, it should really be about food and how to eat, whatever it may be. Look for the RD in there. There are a lot of outlets now, even online, that RDs are writing these articles. So look for someone like that or go see a practitioner. There are many RDs. I'm always happy to help someone find someone in the area or, I do it. So there are ways, you can insurance cover some registered dietitians and certain like groups that are around our area as well. So do look for registered dietitians to get advice because they look at everything. They look at your diet, they look at your health, they look at your medications, they look at your family history, your likes and dislikes, your culture. Doctors don't have time for it. You don't have time for it. You need to do about the medicine and like feeling good, with the clinical symptoms. That's my job. My job is to work, with the food and be very, very specific with it, with that person and with all their needs.
I love that. And that's why we have you, right? And so is there a national site to find like a registered dietitian? I'm sure
Sure.
there is, right?
Yeah, you go to the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics. Their website is eatright.org.
Mm.
Eats like RIGHT, like eatright.org. So that's their organization. And then there's a click find an expert, and then you can find a dietitian in your area, wherever you live in the US, they have someone. Or I
Mm,
usually know somebody in the US.
awesome. So if someone could just make one change to improve their midlife nutrition starting tomorrow, what would you recommend?
There's so many. I think the misinformation is the biggest issue. So
Mhm.
I think finding appropriate sources to properly educate yourself and not being scared of food. I think that is one of the things because it's hard to say, oh, just go grab a yogurt, but there's so many other things you could do. But I think a lot of that misinformation that we hear on television and the media every day, especially lately, there's a ton of misinformation. Knowing how to work it for your own diet and know what the real information and not being scared of food. And a lot of people are scared. They're scared of additives. They're scared of dyes. You're not eating red dye 3 all the time because you're not eating, unless you're eating all these candies all the time, which is mainly where it's found. And like I said, we're not eating enough fruits and vegetables. You don't have to worry about certain things in there. So, it's the misinformation. So getting a good source for your information.
Yeah, like all these years I've been avoiding tuna, right? Because I
My
was
gosh, I
afraid
want to see you eating some tuna. Just you don't have to eat it every day, but just add it back a little bit.
yeah, yeah, no, I'm excited to start eating tuna again. So, what's a common mistake you see women that's easy to fix? And I know you talked a little bit about the misinformation, but when it comes to how they eat, would you say just to eat food, just enjoy it, stop worrying
Well,
about
one of the things is cutting out a lot of food groups. That's one of the red flags of any diet. If they tell you to cut out, a lot of people who cut out dairy cut out gluten too. And first of all, you need proper diagnosis if you think you have lactose intolerance, malabsorption, whatever it is. But don't diagnose yourself and say it's because and it's not because maybe there is something an issue, but get it diagnosed so you could because otherwise you're cutting out 13 essential nutrients in dairy, including three that people don't get, especially women: calcium, vitamin D, potassium. We need those things. And then when you're talking about gluten, you might be cutting out some of the B vitamins, the fiber, there are things in there. So, you don't want to be cutting out food. There's a reason why we have a variety, and that's why dietitians recommend a variety of foods.
it?
So, be careful. Yes, you can choose wisely, but, be careful before you just say, black and white, oh, cutting out all this food group. Not, well, you're also cutting out a ton of nutrients that, are definitely could be part of a healthy diet.
Well, this has been such an awesome conversation, Toby. Thank you so much. And Toby, for those people that will probably get the recording later, how can they get in touch with you? How can they find you? How can they follow you? all of that
Sure.
good.
I'm on Facebook, Instagram, just my first and last name. You can find me, Toby Amidor. On Facebook, it's Toby Amidor Nutrition, but even LinkedIn, Toby Amidor. And I'll post articles, and my Instagram always has like some of these farm tours and, some of this misinformation I debunk. It's one of the big things I do.
Yeah, that's awesome. And you have 11 cookbooks. I still can't
Yes,
believe
I do have a lot of recipes, healthy eating. Yes.
it. And working on book number 12. How amazing is that? And we're
Yes.
so lucky to have you here. So thank you for listening to the podcast, and make sure you leave us a review, share and like the podcast. And if you leave me a review, I'd love to shout you out on social media. So be sure that you share it with all your friends. And thanks for listening.